17-year-old Gukesh makes his way to the table. He puts his player card and then removes his jacket and puts it on the chair. He's going to play perhaps one of the most important games of his life, because if he manages to win this, he surpasses Vishy Anand on the live ratings and becomes the new India number 1. This hasn't happened for years. Vishy has been India number 1 for 37 years, and barring from the fact that Hari Krishna once overtook him in 2016, no one has been able to do that. And here Gukesh waits for his opponent, Misratdin Iskandarov from Azerbaijan. He's rated 2559. The only little confusion that Gukesh can have in this game is that he's already leading the match 1-0 and a draw is enough to get him to round 3. But if he plays for a win, there are risks there as well. E4 by Iskandarov. What is Gukesh's choice? He goes for the Sicilian. He's like, let's go. Let's fight it out here. I'm ready for a full-fledged fight. Knight to F3. The knight develops out. And Gukesh now, will he go for the Najdorf or his favorite Sicilian Sveshnikov? He takes his time and brings his knight out to c6. It seems like it's going to be the Sveshnikov. His opponent plays the open Sicilian. Gukesh takes the pawn. Knight takes the pawn. And now knight f6 is what is commonly played here. Gukesh does that. He attacks the pawn on e4. Iskandarov gets his knight out to c3. And the Sveshnikov is characterized by the move e5. It's a very dynamic opening because you hit the knight, but on the other hand, white says you've weakened your d6 square, your d5 square, and that is definitely something to be careful about. Gukesh pushes his pawn to d6 and the knight comes to d5. Fabiano Caruana popularized this line in his match with Magnus Carlsen. There's a threat of a check on c7, so Gukesh chops off the knight, pawn takes the knight, and now the knight can go to e7, can also go to b8. These are the two logical moves. Gukesh goes back to b8 and pawn comes up to a4. This is a very subtle move. The idea of pawn to a4 is that whenever you play a6, the knight can drop back on a3 without disturbing the queenside pawns. Gukesh castles it out and he's going to play on the king side. Misratdin is going to play on the queen side. He plays a5, gaining even more space there. Look at the time on the clock of Iskandarov. He has 1 hour 34 minutes. That's how well prepared he is. Knight comes to a3 and now you can see the queen cannot take the pawn because the bishop protects it. Gukesh first gets his bishop out and now the knight comes into c4. The knight is looking at the b6 square, and of course Gukesh is going to stop it with knight d7. Very logical chess. And Iskandarov now puts his bishop on b4. He says, here is a weakness in your position and I'm attacking with everything. A natural move is queen c7, but Gukesh goes rook c8. Some tricks. If you take this, then there is rook takes c2 hanging. And if you play bishop takes d6, there is rook c4 that's hanging. So in the end, Iskandarov plays bishop e2. Gukesh gets his bishop back. White castles. And now Gukesh goes knight to c5. He puts his knight on a good square on c5. Rook comes out to a3. Generally, this rook is used on the third rank as well. f5. Let's go. Gukesh goes for an aggressive setup. He wants to push his kingside pawn, but the knight comes in and attacks the rook. Now, he plays his rook up to c7, which is a fine move. And now c4 would have been the best move here, but Iskandarov takes the knight, which is not a good decision. Gukesh takes on c5. The position is now equal. One can understand why Misratdin did this. His main aim was to gain this one tempo by attacking the rook, and once the rook goes back, he also wanted to push his c-pawn, which he does now, and say that look at my pawns on the queen side, I have made so much progress here. But Gukesh says, I am making progress on the king side, I am playing here. He plays his pawn up to f4. Very smart move because it limits this bishop, but Gukesh takes it. And after taking this, it's very important to note now that the e5 square is free for the bishop to come here and sit. And this is the plan that Gukesh should take up. He does that. He plays bishop f6. He knows that his bishop will be well positioned on the e5 square. Now the king goes to h1. And here Gukesh has a very long think, because this is the moment when he has to come up with a plan. Close to 25 minutes of thought, and he puts his bishop on e5, threatening queen h4 with mating ideas here. But look at the smart move by Iskandarov. If you go queen here, he wants to sack, take, push d6, get his bishop out here. And so Gukesh first plays rook c7, very smart, because now when you take, pawn takes, d6 does not attack the rook. He brings his rook to e3, but he surely missed Gukesh's next move. Yes, Gukesh instantly plays it. Brilliant move. Queen d4 played. You know, if he had saved his rook, then queen h4 was coming. So he plays this and gives up an exchange. And Iskandarov hopes that in return for giving up an exchange, he has a very stable position with his knight, queenside majority, and bishop. And Gukesh's bishop not doing so well. But Gukesh instantly solves it. He's like, my bishop has opened up now. Queen comes into e6. If you are not careful, then there could be problems with c5 move. But of course Gukesh kicks the queen away. It cannot stay there for long. The queen comes back to e2. And now, how do you make progress? How do you basically make use of your rooks which love open files? Because e file is completely captured by white. Gukesh wants to move his queen, but where? He goes queen h4. Very interesting. And now Iskandarov sort of thinks deeply, because for him pushing c5 is no longer so easy. He first goes king g1, and with king g1 Gukesh comes back with his queen and wants to get in on the c3 square. So queen d2 played, trying to stop it. But now the control on the e file has been reduced, and Gukesh gets rook e7 and rests control over the e line. Takes here, take on e7, and he's going to play queen takes e7 here. Gukesh has managed to trade more pieces. Of course, taking this pawn is impossible. There is a mate on e1, so he pushes the pawn to c5. But now Gukesh really thinks hard. Look at how much time he took there. He's down to his last 7 minutes. But that's the thing about Gukesh. He calculates so precisely, almost like an engine. d6, but he has seen here that now he can actually move in with a queen, with a check. Brilliant here, brilliant decision. And you will understand why, because after queen takes queen, pawn takes here, and now when white recaptures the pawn on c5, which is what he's going to do, Gukesh has prepared his next very nice move, which is bishop e4. Brilliant. If you take here, then e2 is coming. So he had to move his bishop away, and with this he has stabilized his position. He goes bishop d3. We are on move number 38, reaching move number 40. So Gukesh just maybe would repeat it couple of times in order to gain time on the clock. Plays bishop e4. He still has 5 minutes 46 seconds on the clock, and now the final move before time control. He takes his time, comes down to 1 minute 30 seconds and brings his king. Beautiful decision. The king will come here and snatch this pawns. Often, you know, we forget about our king as a piece in the endgame, but not Gukesh. He is a very strong player and he makes use of every single resource that is there. Now Iskandarov lets his time come down to 0 so that they both get 30 extra minutes on the clock. He captures the pawn on e3, but now it's very straightforward. Gukesh comes in with his king. He's coming to d4, knight c4 check. He knows that this game is over. All he needs to do is take care of some knight forks. King d4 comes in. The c5 pawn is hanging. Knight jumps to b6. Last trap. If you take this pawn, there is a check here and a fork to lose the rook. So bishop comes back to c6. And now it's all over. There's no play left. c5 is hanging, then d6 will fall, and Gukesh is winning this game. Iskandarov stops the clock. Gukesh places the king in the center. He has won the game. With this, he gets valuable 2.5 elo points, which takes him to 2755.9, 2 elo points ahead of Vishy Anand, and he has broken the record of Anand for being India number 1, and he's also reached world number 9 rankings. Anand has been pushed back to world number 10. So a huge game for Gukesh and a huge result. It's an iconic moment for Indian chess, and Gukesh at just the tender age of 17 has managed to do that. He also moves into round number 3, where he takes on SL Narayanan. It will be an exciting round number 3. For now, we hope you enjoyed this amazing game played by Gukesh.